Hello there. Good afternoon. My name is Brad Walsh, host of the Empowerography Podcast here in Toronto. My guest today is Jordana Goldlist, criminal lawyer based out of Toronto, Canada. Hi, Jordana. How are you doing today?
Hi, Brad. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How's your day going?
So far, so good.
Excellent.
Far, so good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Despite the current lockdown, I'm trying to make it work.
Yeah, it must be tough.
It is. I don't have the type of job that naturally happens remotely. So everyone in the justice system right now is very quickly trying to adjust to a world where we are calling in to court appearances, some by video, some by audio. It's strange. And then, of course, dealing with the high stress situation of many clients in custody. So it's been a lot of turmoil to try to navigate very quickly.
I'm sure it has. And with no warning, I mean, this just came on and all of a sudden our world has changed.
That's it. And it's changing day to day, week to week. So what was normal last week is not even an option this week. So
yeah.
It's been hard to keep up with all the directives, but
I'm sure it has.
We're all managing as best we can.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all in the same situation. I mean, yes, we all have different jobs and different careers and whatnot, but we're all going through this together around the world, not just here in Ontario or Canada. It's not localized, it's worldwide. So we're all dealing with it globally.
Totally. That's it.
So let's just jump right in here. Could you tell me about a specific time when you knew or you just knew you wanted to be a lawyer or had to be a lawyer, like that it was your calling?
I don't know that the first time I realized I wanted to be a lawyer, I understood what it meant to have a calling. I was 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
And a family member of mine was charged criminally and had the assistance of a now retired criminal defense lawyer who was arguably the most important person in our life for about a year while we were navigating the system. And I didn't really understand or appreciate why, but, watching him and understanding the importance he had in our life, I wanted that. I just knew that I wanted to be that important and that critical in someone else's life and to be able to help other people the way that, he had helped us. So that really planted the seed for my desire to enter the legal profession.
Interesting. So when did you start knowing that, yes, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do? When was there a point where it actually hit you? And it's like, aside from that instance, was there a point that said to you, I have to do this? This is my calling when you got older?
No, I mean, it always stuck with me that that's what I wanted to be. So as I got older, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. And then, of course, I, ventured out in my teenage years and didn't think I was going to be much of anything. And then when I got to the end of my undergraduate studies, I really had to figure out what was next. I was about to earn an honors degree in philosophy, but didn't know where I wanted to take that as far as a career was concerned. So it was in my last year of undergrad that I thought, you know what, let me see if that sort of childhood dream can actually become a reality. It was really the only thing that I wanted to do other than remain in academia, but I wanted the lifestyle of a lawyer as opposed to, a professor. And so at the same time as I was applying to law school, I also applied to do a master's degree in philosophy, was accepted into both, and had to decide from a lifestyle perspective what was really my calling. And so I guess, I was almost 25, I was 24 years old, having to make the decision of which way I wanted to go.
Right. Was that an easy decision for you? Was it just right away you knew, or did you really have to put a lot of thought into it? And
I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. At that time, I didn't think I was ready to be that serious in life. I was still entrenched in sort of a very party girl subculture. And so I knew I had to live a serious, focused life going into law school that I didn't know if I was ready for. And so I had to think whether or not I really could. And I just saw it as my one opportunity. I had just been accepted to Osgoode Hall. And I thought, if, I can't defer, my only option is to either do this or reapply and risk, throwing away the one opportunity I have to live out something that at that point had been, a dream for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So why did you choose criminal law as the area of law you wanted to practice? Was that always when you made that decision to go to law school, did you know then that that's the area of law you wanted to practice in, or did it change over the course?
So it was always what I wanted to do. I've always been very much infatuated with the criminal subculture. Reading crime novels when I was young, like very young, from the time I was probably about, 9 or 10 years old. I started reading biographies on serial killers, and there was this interest in the psychology that I never shook. And so I've always had this interest in, criminal organizations, just the structure of crime, the business of crime. And that continued, throughout my teens and into my 20s. And then when I got to law school, I wanted to do criminal defense, but then, we're inundated with the big Bay Street firms, and there's a culture around the corporate world that is obviously compelling because it's very, very lucrative. And so then I thought, maybe I'll try my hand on Bay Street, but I don't have the personality for Bay Street at all. I just can't. I've never been, a part of a herd mentality.
Right.
And so for me, I knew it also wasn't going to work for me, even if I wanted that sort of flashy lifestyle. And then I discovered civil litigation, which to me was sort of this middle ground between the two. And on the other side, I had been myself heavily involved in criminal subculture for a very long time. And my family was telling me to, forget that life in all of its, in all regards, even if it's as a lawyer, and just be on the other side is basically how my family structured it. And, and so I thought, okay, what civil litigation is like, I still get to go to court and argue, and I still get to be on my feet. But I'm not actually involved in like crime. And so that's how I started my career. I graduated law school at 28 years old, and I went to work I articled, and then I went to work at a civil firm, and it was great. I got to learn how to be a lawyer and how to run cases and manage cases and interact with other lawyers. But I also got bored very quickly. And my just innate interest in crime drew me back. And so 2 years post-call, in May of 2010, so almost 10 years now, I switched to a criminal. I went to work for a criminal firm. I spent 5 years building up my own practice. And then it's just over 5 years now that I've left and been on my own.
That's pretty incredible.
Thanks.
So being a woman in the world of criminal law, have you found there are bias, or is it any more difficult being a woman in that field of work? Because we all know how those things go in different worlds, the business world, and have you found it difficult being a woman in the criminal law field?
I have not.
No. Okay.
I know that there are a lot of female criminal lawyers who feel like they are at a disadvantage somehow. I've never personally experienced that. I have never experienced any type of harassment. I've never experienced any type of ridicule. I have had phenomenal mentors, from the first defense lawyer who hired me to work in his firm. It was an amazing experience. He was absolutely brilliant. I had, I can't say a negative thing about him or the firm I worked at, up until I left. We didn't part ways very well, and that's more attributable to the fact that I was, leaving sort of in short order to start my own practice than anything else. So I never experienced that. I never experienced it with judges or crown attorneys belittling me. I don't know, but I also have a very aggressive personality, and I think that people around me know that they won't get away with that.
Right.
It just won't. I won't tolerate it. I also go to court very prepared, and I'm very firm in the fact that I know I'm prepared and I know my case and I know the law. And so I do the work beforehand. I think that, I see some people getting ridiculed, not because they're females a lot of the time, but because they're unprepared or they're not able to firmly articulate their position. And I think that throws, some judges and crowns off. That's not to say there's no bias. I'm not trying to belittle the experience of other women.
Right.
I'm just saying I've never encountered it. I've always
and you won't have it. You won't put up with it.
Oh God, no. No, definitely not.
For you, what is one of the most frustrating things about being a lawyer?
Frustrating or stressful? I mean, it's a very stressful profession for sure. The nature of my practice is so I deal mostly with high risk criminal litigation. So I'm dealing mostly with people charged with murder, attempt murder, serious drug dealing, firearms offenses. So I'm not dealing with things on sort of the smaller or light scale. So the cases that I take on are very stressful.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most frustrating things is a lot of people don't understand or appreciate the role that the defense plays in the justice system. And so I often get the question, how do you sleep at night? How can you defend those people? And there's this really like us versus them mentality. And I think we have to start rethinking the way that we look at the criminal justice system in order to better not just quote unquote those people,
right?
But society as a whole, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to treat people who have fallen in hard times and made what we would call bad choices in their life as some kind of pariah in society, you can't be surprised when that person turns around and commits another serious offense, right? We have to be able to open up the doors to real rehabilitation. And so sometimes it's frustrating trying to have people understand that those people you can't just judge by virtue of what they are currently charged with. There's a bigger picture.
Have you ever found it tough morally to defend a certain case, any case that has rung true with you or bothered you, and knowing that the person has committed a crime of a heinous nature, for lack of a better term? Have you ever had a difficult time doing that, defending someone? I mean, I would imagine you don't, because that's your job, but have you ever struggled morally with anything like that?
I have.
There's
been cases. Yeah. I mean, they're few and far between. But no, there's certainly been cases where it's hard to put in the time and effort in defending someone that has done something completely reprehensible. They're few and far between, but I mean, I can think of a few instances where it was just difficult, and you have to put those sort of morals aside and appreciate that your job is bigger than that one case, right? Like, and quite frankly, it's almost doing a service to society by defending that case to the best of your ability and putting in, an amazing fight, and knowing that you have done everything to the full extent of the law in defending this person. And when they're still convicted, you've done your part, right? Like that for me shows that the system is working. It's those cases where I'm at ease knowing that we do have a system that functions properly.
Now, have you encountered with your peers in the law world flack or backlash because of the type of law you practice defending criminals? Do you find you get a lot of flack or things like that from your peers? Like from
other lawyers,
but not in the
other area?
Yes.
Not really. I mean, there's not a whole lot of socializing between, like the criminal defense bar basically stays on their own.
Okay.
We don't spend a lot of time socializing or meeting up with other lawyers. Our courts are separate. Everything we do is sort of separate. But I have a network of lawyers for referral purposes.
Right.
But we all just sort of stay and do our own thing. I mean, sometimes we'll, share cases or whatever, but I find most of what other lawyers are doing quite boring. So I don't really engage much in hearing about, I don't need to hear about your recent real estate transaction. It's fine. Honestly, no worries.
Is there anything you wish you knew when you first started out that you know now?
I recently got a tattoo of a diamond being polished. It's like two polishing tools with a diamond in between. And it stands for the notion of respecting the process.
Right.
There's a process with everything. And so I don't like to have regrets, and I don't like to think back and say, oh, I wish I knew this. I wish that I did this differently. Because I think we can always do that. And I think that we're expending energy in a negative way by doing that. Right. All of the mistakes that I made, and surely there were a lot of mistakes, but the mistakes I made along the way are what taught me the lessons I needed to get myself where I am right now. And I think I will continue making mistakes, and I will always continue refining who I am as both a person and a lawyer, based on decisions I reflect on. But I don't like going too far back and critiquing sort of my history. If I do that, I think it spins off into a negative, unnecessary cycle. I often am asked by, mostly law students, but sometimes even just university students who are, in undergrad and interested in joining law, what advice I have. And so I think back to how I started practicing, and I give them the advice of things that I would have done if I was back there. I emphasize things like networking. I really think it's important to build a solid network. I did not do that in law school the way that I should have. I spent my law school for other reasons, just sort of keeping to myself. Law school for me was a huge transition personally, and I just wasn't prepared to engage socially with people around me. But, for other people who are entering the world of law, network, build a community of people, because really that's who we're leaning on, for practice, for answers, for camaraderie. Like, it's really important to have that no matter what area of law you're in. And I think that applies to other professions as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's just good to have a solid network around you. For
sure. So what are some of the challenges you faced early on in your career, and how did you overcome them?
I just dug right in. So from my first case I got handed, I wanted to do everything perfectly. And so I read through the cases, I studied the law. I worked really hard, and I always felt like I had to work harder than people around me. I always felt like I was playing catch up. I felt like, as a former high school dropout and someone who had sort of lived this alternative lifestyle throughout my teens, I thought that I had a lot of time to make up for, and I always felt like I had put myself in a position of disadvantage. Whether that's true or not, I'll never know, but I was always working harder than I thought other people were, and I just put that work in. So I think for me it was just, making sure that I had a solid foundation in everything I did, being prepared, knowing all of the, important cases or the relevant precedents on the decisions I was dealing with, things like that.
Okay. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become a successful lawyer and start your own firm?
My superpower, I don't know. Maybe my hustle. I would say my hustle. After a few years of working on cases that were sort of handed to me through my firm and understanding how to practice criminal defense and what the law was, for me, it was really important to get that foundation. I know a lot of young lawyers now, they just jump out and they want to build their business. And it's like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, why don't you focus on being a good lawyer first, and then you can worry about the business side of things. But in any event, so once I understood how to practice law, and once I understood sort of what I was doing in a courtroom, I really was strategic about the way I wanted to build a practice. And I'm still very strategic from a marketing perspective and a practice perspective about the type of cases that I want to do and the type of clients that I represent. And so I have a great ability to connect with my clients and speak to them in ways that really help them that other lawyers I don't think are able to, right? I think that when you haven't had the same sort of experiences historically that I've had, like I understand some of my clients in ways that I don't even have to tell them I do, but they know by the way that I'm speaking to them.
Right.
I don't talk down to clients. I don't think I'm better than any of them. I think that, you know, person to person, we're the same. We've just made different decisions along the way.
Yeah.
And those different decisions have put me in the position of being their lawyer, but that doesn't make me a better person necessarily. So I think that there's this sort of mutual respect that's garnered from that is lost on a lot of lawyers.
So how difficult or easy was that transition from working at a law firm to starting your own practice?
Oh my God, it was so hard.
I'm sure.
It was. So for the first 365 days, I didn't take a day off.
Wow.
I worked every day from 7 a.m. until midnight because I was still running back-to-back jury trials. I was working by myself. I left my law practice. I left my law firm with over 120 active files, including 2 murders, 3 projects, like huge drug cases. And I was covering territory. I mean, you're from Toronto.
Yeah.
As far north as Barrie. Then cases so I had Barrie, St. Catharines, all over the Toronto courthouses, of which there's 5 Ontario courthouses. Hamilton, I had a massive practice. Brampton, St. Catharines, Welland, Oshawa. So I was literally, and one person trying to run this huge practice, both in terms of volume and jurisdiction. And for the first 3 months, I was like exhausted and stressed, trying to creep up. And then I had to, you know, along the way, figure out how to refine. So I started cutting off certain jurisdictions. You know what? I can't travel this far. It's not possible for me to go from Welland to Barrie, you know, in the same day. It's just like, I can't do it. So I started cutting down on jurisdictions, and then slowly I started cutting down what type of cases, and I started really refining my practice. But that took time. It took time, and I didn't want to just like, you know, walk away from files. I wanted to make sure the clients were looked after. And so it was hard for sure. I had to get used to, I mean, I, from day one, had a bookkeeper because I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and accounting is definitely not my strength. So I've always had an accountant and a bookkeeper to make sure that like books are properly in order. As you can imagine, as lawyers, like we're highly, highly regulated by the Law Society. So I always wanted to make sure that, you know, my books were in compliance with their rules. So I've always had professionals to just manage my accounts. But, you know, I still had to enter my dockets, and I still had to make sure that all of my matters were diarized. Like there was just administrative work and sort of that background to the actual cases that needed to be looked after, where I didn't have that at the firm. At the firm, you know, when I left, we were 30 lawyers, 4 students. I had my own administrative assistant, so she was looking after all of my files. So yeah, I was all of a sudden wearing all of those hats all at once. Crazy.
So in those first 365 days, was there moments where you're like, what the hell have I done?
Yes, absolutely. But I was also, you know, I think within the first 2 months, I doubled my income. Within the first 6 months, I had tripled my income.
Holy
so I started realizing how much money I was losing by being at a firm, and what I was actually capable of winning and so of making. I mean, so it was just, you know what, let's just keep going.
Push and I on still, through.
Yeah, and I mean, I still work, you know, similar hours. I take more time off now. The first year was horrible. By the end of it, I had a lot of people in my life telling me I just needed to take a vacation to reset because I was like running ragged. And I didn't even realize how stressed I was until I took that first vacation. Yeah. So I took some time off. And so now every 3 to 4 months, I go away for even just a few days at a time, 4 or 5 days.
Well, that's good.
Like reset.
We need that as human beings. I mean, you can only 100%. Go so hard for so long, right?
Yeah, that's it. And now I have help, of course. Now I have, a clerk at the office that helps me out. I have an associate who's fantastic. I have an articling student when we're not, in this COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've learned to build a solid team.
Well, it's hard when you're starting your own thing. Like you alluded to earlier, you wear so many hats. It's hard to give up control too, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, good for you. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So what would you say is your biggest high or your greatest win up to this point? And not necessarily in the world of being a lawyer, but just in general, in life or in law, either or.
No, I mean, I think as opposed to having like an example of a case, right? I've won some great cases. I've lost some cases. I don't really look at those as my own personal highs and lows. I think just, the fact of me having this amazing, successful career that includes, as an offshoot, me teaching about bias in the system to university students, that has me as a mentor to street kids and university students through Ryerson University. I live a really full life. I have some fantastic people around me. Like where I've positioned in my life for me is my biggest win when I compare it to what my life was 20 years ago, right? At 20 years old, I was just coming out of, rehab, having spent 3 years basically on the streets of Toronto, like homeless high school dropout. So I dug myself up from nothing. And the life that I've created for myself, for me, is a high. And I don't even think that I've necessarily scratched the surface. I think that right now I've just built a solid foundation for myself, but have, so many other goals that I want to develop. And so when I think about the highs, it's for me reflecting on where I was and where I'm at now, and how many people I've been able to help in all aspects of my life, my career, my volunteer work, like all of it together. And that for me is my high. It's just the fact that I pulled myself out of such a mess. And
that's a pretty incredible story.
Thanks.
Do you find that keeps you very humble when you look back? Because I'm sure you reflect back on your life time and again, just to remind yourself and keep yourself grounded, as most people do. Do you find it's very humbling?
Absolutely. Every day I recognize, like, not only that, oh, look how far I've come, but all it would take is a few bad choices to bring me right back there. Right. I've never lost sight of that. And knowing that keeps me focused forward, right? Knowing that I cannot afford to get lazy or sloppy or caught up in, a bad, loop for my own self-thought. Like that's really humbling, right? Knowing that, yes, I was at a really bad place in life, but also knowing that I'm capable of being back there if I let myself. Right? It forces me to never forget where I was. And it also assists me in seeing my clients as people, because quite frankly, like a few different decisions in my life, I'd be exactly where they are. And I know that.
Wow. What did you give up or sacrifice to get where you are today? What was one of your biggest sacrifices?
Everything. I was living like a really exciting party girl lifestyle in undergrad. And, when I entered law school, I gave that up in my first semester. Slowly, but like I stopped going to some parties and I tried going to others. Like I really tried to hold on. And by the end of first semester, I was like, I just can't do this. I need to cut that part of my life out completely. And I mean, I have friends that are still going, 15 years later. And I see the pictures. I'm like, oh, sometimes I miss that. But like, it's so fleeting, right? The life that I've built for myself now is so much more satisfying and so much more productive than I could have ever been if I had maintained that lifestyle. So, I gave up friends. I gave up fun times. I gave up, living an irresponsible life. I had to work hard for everything that I have. Nothing has come easy, and it's all been carefully plotted, right? Like in the way that I've built up my business. So a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of, fun times that I've missed out on, group travels that I've missed out on because I have big cases. So no, you have to make decisions in life sometimes, and it always means giving up something to get something else.
Yeah. Amazing. From the ground up, as you said before, you built everything you have now from nothing. So that's pretty incredible, and you should be very proud.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Let's take it off a serious note for a little bit, a couple minutes here. If you could have one superpower, what would that be?
One superpower.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking like Marvel comic type superpower.
Yeah, like would you be invisible? Would you want to be able to teleport yourself? Would you things like that?
I would love to teleport
strength.
myself. No, I would love to teleport myself, not only to different locations, but like to different time periods. I'm so fascinated by other time periods. So like if there's, a movie about something that, occurred at the turn of the century, right? Like I've always been fascinated by just different eras in life. I would love to be able to go back and, watch like, I don't know, Roman Crusaders, right? Like I'd love to be able to go back and see what it was like to, watch some of the challenges back and like, I don't know. Cool. Yeah, I think I would like to teleport myself.
All right.
But yeah, not just geographically, but across centuries.
Time periods.
Yeah, time travel.
Yeah, there we go. What's your favorite sound or noise in the world? What sound do you love?
I love the roar of a Lamborghini.
All right.
That's my favorite sound.
Okay. What's your favorite word?
So this will sound totally unprofessional, but I think my favorite word is fuck. It's like literally the most versatile word in the English language. We can use it for good, we can use it for bad, we can insert it into any sentence whatsoever for, just to get a reaction. And it's one of those words in certain circumstances will always get a reaction. So obviously I'm, careful with not using it in certain environments. But yeah, I certainly swear as much as most of my clients, if not more. And it's just one of those words that's probably stuck in my vocabulary from my teenage years and has never been lost to me.
I think a lot of people's vocabularies for that matter.
Yeah.
What other profession would you be doing if you weren't a lawyer, do you think?
I don't know. I can't imagine doing anything else, really.
Okay.
I have plans in the future. I've written a book that I'm now editing.
Wow.
My next project will be a TV show, and we'll see what happens with that. But right now, I can't imagine doing anything else. And I can't imagine my life having not spent the time that I have as a lawyer. Like, I really think that this was an important part of my journey, even if I one day venture off to do other things.
Very
so,
cool.
Yeah, I think that it was, the best choice for me at the time that I made it. And I love what I do.
That's
as high
amazing.
stress as it is and as frustrated as it can be sometimes, like at the end of the day, I really love what I do. I love being in court. I love arguing. I, love the clients that I represent. I have a really positive relationship with most of my clients in the sense of there's this mutual trust and respect that we have for each other. They know not, to cross boundaries. Obviously, it's a professional relationship, but I also know that, I have clients that message me years and years later out of the blue just to update me on their life situation and thank me for helping them through the case. When I get those messages, I'm like, wow, I did something that has such an impact on this person's life that, years and years later, they just wanted to hold themselves accountable and let me know. And that to me is huge.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, it really is.
So what is the best advice you've ever received? Whether it be personal or professional.
I think that the best advice, I've received a lot of good advice that sort of helped me along the way, but when I was 2 months before I started law school, I was going to try to defer my law school education because I was too busy, caught up in like this sort of party lifestyle. I was making really good money, and I didn't want to leave that sort of other life that I had built for myself. And a friend of mine at the time pulled me aside. It was basically, are you crazy? Like, you just got into, arguably one of Canada's best law schools, and you're going to pass that up for a life you already know. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I'm making good money. I don't know what to do. And she said, you know what? Just try it. Try law school. And if you don't like it, you can always go back. And that to me is just always stuck. Because okay. I can always go back and do what's comfortable. I can always go back and do what I'm familiar with. But where I'm heading requires me to continuously take a leap of faith into what I don't know. But I'm always reassured by the fact that if I fail, I can go back to doing what I know how to do. And so it helped me, make the decision to go to law school. And then it helped me get into a firm. And then I thought back to that piece of advice when I decided to try criminal defense. I thought, what if I'm not good at this? What if I can't do this? What if, it brings up sort of my past and my history in a way that's not healthy for me? What am I going to do? And I thought, you know what? Why don't I try it? And if I really cannot navigate this world, I can go back to civil. I can go back to whatever it is that I knew was working before I made that change. And it was just like when I started my business, right? Like it was based on a leap of faith that I went out on my own and opened up my own practice. But I knew that if it didn't work or I failed, I could just apply at another law firm, right? You can always go backwards in life. But those opportunities to move forward, those are often once in a lifetime opportunities.
Okay. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
I don't know. I think it's like been hijacked by the Me Too movement in ways that I don't even want to give credence to, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think personal empowerment is really just recognizing your own strengths and using those strengths to your advantage.
Okay. So if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, whether it be personal or professional, what would that piece of advice be?
What younger self? I've transformed myself so many times that I'm not sure. Would I go back and reassure the child that we'll get through this? Would I go back and, tell the teen to smarten up and make better decisions? Would I tell that, 20-year-old self to enjoy every single moment? Because despite the fact that I had this vision of myself never growing up, it was actually bound to happen. I don't know. I don't know.
The 20-year-old self. There you go. You just summed it up right there.
That was it, man. Enjoy every moment. When I hear 20-year-olds complaining and 23-year-olds complaining about their life and how hard it is, I just want to slap them. It's like, no, You are at your prime. I mean,
Yeah.
20 to 25 for me was like some of the best times in my life in every way. And I'm so glad that I took the time to enjoy life in every way, to travel, to party, to hang out with friends, and yet still like I was, a full-time student during those years working 2 part-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So like I still worked really hard for everything I had, but I really enjoyed my life at the same time. And it was sort of this perfect balance. And then the pendulum swung the other way to like, working really, really hard for 3 years in university and giving that up. And then in my 30s, it's sort of like I still fluctuated between the extremes. So I worked
Mm-hmm.
really, really hard, and I partied a lot, and throughout my 30s, spent that time traveling. So it's periods of like really hard, intense work,
Mm-hmm.
but then finding the time to enjoy it. And it's
A balance.
about striking that balance 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that will bring our interview to an end. I just wanted to say thank you so much for making the time to chat with me, Jordana. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for sharing your story and your insights. And you have a lot to be proud of. It's a pretty incredible story. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on the show.
Problem.
I think it's really fantastic what you're doing with this podcast, and
Thank you.
I appreciate you having my voice on to share.
Absolutely. Well, once again, thank you very much. My name is Brad Walsh, host of the Empowerography Podcast. My guest today was Jordana Goldlist, criminal lawyer based here in Toronto, Canada. Thanks again, Jordana. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.